Woodward Sports Network, Maz sent a text to me and Braylon today and said, we got Bischoff 3 o'clock. What was my reaction?
Bam!
Boom! Boom! Cannot wait to talk to this guy. One of my favorite conversations every year.
Scotty.
It is with the great Scott Bischoff, NFL scout, staff writer for the Football Guys, Lions podcast.
Relation, by the way.
On X, at Bischoff_Scott. Did I get that right?
Yeah. How are
Yeah,
you guys?
baby.
Doing good.
Fantastic,
Doing well, man.
buddy. How you doing, man? It's been too long.
Good. It's good to see all you guys.
What's
Back
new,
at you,
man?
Back at you, man.
Scott, let me start with this question. Big picture view of this draft. How many first-round grades do you have on players?
Maybe a dozen.
12.
In that range. It's very dependent on, what your team is looking for or what position. The D-line, it's kind of loaded at D-line, running back, and tight end. And that's sort of it. I think you have, big picture-wise, you have a few premium players in this draft. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Ashton Janty. And then after that, it's just a bunch of, what do you want, right? What kind of players are you looking for? There's players with upside. There's younger players. There's older players. I would say that the same player you're going to get at say pick 15 is very similar to the kind of player you're going to get at 28. Is going to be pretty similar to the player that you may get at 60. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a strange draft. It's a weird draft class outside of the very, very top of the draft class. It's just there's no other way to put it. It's not a good class.
It feels like that to me, and I can't put a finger on it if it's because of the lack of quarterbacks. I mean, last year was like 5 quarterbacks where you're just like, wow, all these guys are going to go high. It doesn't feel like the quarterbacks are good. You tell me if that's accurate or not. Cam Ward, any question he's going number 1 overall? Any question at all? And what type of player do you think Cam Ward will be?
So I don't think at this point there's a question he's going number 1 overall. I think you're right. There's questions with all of these quarterbacks. I think we're starting to see a little bit of the 7-on-7 off-season stuff that a lot of the skill position players do kind of creep into quarterback play, more so than it has in the past. So if you watch, if just the footwork of a player like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart, those the guys that are considered the first 3, if you want to call them that, in this class, their footwork is sloppy. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. The same could be said for Caleb Williams last year. So, I don't know if that's a 7-on-7 thing or if it's just something that's kind of a new thing with college teams kind of spreading the ball out and throwing it all over the place. But you're right. The quarterback class is not great, but there's a lot of teams in the NFL that need quarterbacks. So there's a scenario where some of these, obviously we think Ward is going first. There could be another one in the top 10. I think Jalen Milroe might surprise people where he may go in this draft. His character's great, military family. If you're banking on all of the quarterbacks in this class requiring some sort of progression and time to develop, he does too. But he also has some athleticism that the others will never have. But yeah, overall, in a normal class, you might have 2 or 3 or maybe more quarterbacks, say in the top 10. Which pushes some players down, but it's not going to happen in this draft. So it's going to be, starting with pick 4, it's going to be a very interesting situation on the 24th.
It's talking to Scott Bischoff, NFL Draft, footballguys.com. Go ahead.
I was like, you done with your question? You gonna let
No,
me
I got a million more to go.
No, I'm messing with you, man. Scott, good to talk to you as well. I'm glad you said that about the quarterback.
You too, bro. It's good to see you.
100%. I've tried to eloquent that on the show a little bit, just talking about how bad, and you worded it right, so I can steal it now. I watch these kids practice these bad habits. They go to these camps. They go to the skill stuff. You practice bad habits. You're trying to be cute, trying to be smooth, trying to be whatever. They take that onto the field, and you can get away with that in college. But once these scouts see it in the combine, once you get into the league, that stuff doesn't work. I had a baseball coach when I was 12 years old. I'm trying to swing the bat like I saw another kid swing because it looked cool. He cussed my butt out and benched me. He said, this is not what I teach you. So I'm glad you did say that. But getting to the draft, you said 15 to 60 could be the same type of talent. So as opposed to the Lions moving up, where everybody's, is it going to move up again? Is this Jahmyr Gibbs? Is this J-Mo? What if they move back? What is the value at 28 and maybe get a couple second-round picks? First question.
Part of the thing in the last couple months has been the player that might be available to the Lions at 28 might feel kind of gross when we get
I agree.
on draft night, right? It just there's a bunch of scenarios that you can run out where you think, no, like you don't want to spend the 28th pick on a player who might be a center or a backup in year one because their window is right now. So if you want to trade back and pick up, let's say you go back to like 34 or 35, you might get a third rounder to do something like that, a third rounder and maybe a fifth, whatever it is. Because I do think that it's a little more attractive to make a pick at 35. And the players that might be available might be a little more attractive at 35 than 28. But the other option's available too, which is, let's say somebody like Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College slips into the late teens. Is there a world where Brad Holmes would trade up for him? And the answer is yes, because it's going to thin out and there's not going to be much sitting there at 28 for you. So I know that's not a great answer, but Brad Holmes has done a bunch of things. We've seen him come up. I think this draft could be one of those where he does trade back down, but, we'll see.
Break that player down that you just talked about, because obviously you're excited about that player. That's a player that kind of fits what the Lions do. Talk about him a little bit because I'm intrigued.
Okay, so last year he had 16 and a half sacks. He might have – everybody wants to talk about Abdul Carter, and they should. Abdul Carter's a freak athlete. And, he's justified in going as high as pick one in this draft. But after him, Donovan Ezeraku might have the best pass rush arsenal in the entire draft class. He has a unique body. He's 6'2" and a half, so he's a little shorter than what teams would like to play edge in, say, in a 4-3. He's 248 pounds, so he's not small. He's just a little shorter, but he does have 34-inch arms, so he's got the length that you want. He's got a 6'10" plus wingspan. So you're talking about all the length that you could possibly want, in some ways surpassing some of the 6'5" edge rushers. But you know how the leverage game works, and when you're built a little bit shorter than the 6'6" tackles, you're already up underneath those guys. So he can do all that stuff. He's strong. He's got enough quickness, but his hand usage and the pass rush arsenal, the ghost moves, the Euro step, the
Mathis.
the rips. He's got it all, and he's got it to where it's not just haphazardly throwing it out there. He has a plan where if this doesn't work, I'm going to this, or he'll do something a few times to set up tackles and win. And when he wins, it's impressive. Again, 16 and a half sacks. He'd be a really nice it'd be a really nice way to complete your defensive line opposite Aiden Hutchinson. The question is does he meet their criteria? Because they've kind of liked the bigger, like think of Marcus Davenport, the 6'5", 280 guys. They have seemed to like those guys, but when you draft those guys, or when you have those guys, you're giving up a little bit of pass rush to have those bigger guys. I think Ezeraku, again, I'm not sure that he'll be there, but he is a weapon as a pass rusher. He'll play the run. He'll do everything that you want to do. Are there going to be times where he might get engulfed a little bit? Yeah, but you would give up some of that stuff just to get the pass rush tools that he does have.
Appreciate that. This is the last one. I absolutely promise this one can be quick. Travis Hunter. He is a player of interest to me like he is everyone else, but I'm interested just like everybody else. Is a wide receiver, is a cornerback, is a little bit of both, is it predominantly one? What is your feel from listening and watching? What do you think he's going to do at whatever team takes him in the top 3-4?
Yeah, I think he'll play corner at a high level, and have 15 or so offensive snaps a game. But the thing around him playing on offense is if he's in the game, you're really trying to scheme things to him.
Yeah.
So it might be 15. You know how it is, Braylon. It's like, 15 snaps on offense is not that much, right? But if they're schemed very much for him, he may get 3 or 4 catches a game in those 15 snaps. He's a weapon as a receiver. I think if he was in this class as just a receiver, he would probably be receiver 1. If he's in this class, obviously just as a corner, I think he's corner 1. And the fact that he could do both those things is remarkable. But I wouldn't put it past him to do more than what I've said. But it's just, I'm trying to be conservative, I guess.
I
But I do think that he is a talent unlike anything we've seen in a little while.
I agree.
Hey, Scotty, thanks for coming on with us. I see you rooting for the Jets, I think. Connor Hellebuck in the NHL playoffs.
Jets.
Come on now.
Kyle Connor and crew, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Hey, what do you think the Lions are going to do in the first round? If they don't move up, they sit at 28. Who do you think falls to them there? Is it an offensive lineman? Will it be the better offensive lineman that's there, or the third or fourth defensive end that's there at 28?
Well, it might be like the third defensive end or fourth defensive end, but the need is so great that that'd be fine. The problem on O-line is, a lot of people are kind of matching up Gray Zabel, who's from North Dakota State, and I think he needs to play center in the NFL. So that's the thing that doesn't make a ton of sense. Is are you drafting a player who probably can't survive as a guard and needs to play center? And if you do that in round 1, he's backing up Frank Ragnow, and that looks great if Ragnow gets hurt, but it doesn't look great if Ragnow plays a lot. So it's that one's confusing on where that all goes. He's a strange build too. He's 6'6" and 312 with 32-inch arms. So you're talking about a player who's not real. He doesn't punch with his hands, so he leaves his chest open a lot. He's going to get walked. And he's going to get abused by, especially if you play him at guard. He's going to get moved around a lot by the bigger defensive tackles in the NFL. Safety's a position of need for them quietly. I think Malachi Starks from Georgia would be a really good fit at 28. I know it'd be a boring pick. Defensive tackle Derek Harmon from Oregon is a really interesting player. He was at Michigan State 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Went out to Oregon, remade his body. He's a very disruptive player. And then secretly, quietly, wide receiver is a kind of a position where they might be able to hit the jackpot at pick 28 with the receiver like Luther Burden, who shouldn't be there, right? Or I know they had Matt Golden in, but I'm sure he'll be gone. But then you have some players from Iowa State. Jaden Higgins is a bigger X receiver. Jalen Noel is a slot receiver who a lot of people liken to Amon-Ra St. Brown, but think that the Lions wouldn't do that because he's too much like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think that's nuts. Like, can we have 2 Amon-Ra St. Browns on offense, please?
Why not?
Is that a problem? Right? I understand that scheme-wise it would require a little creativity, but I think that's okay. So, I guess that's a long way to answer. I don't know what they're going to do.
Sure. Neither do we.
I have no idea.
Neither do we. If they take a receiver, man, I think Detroit would have a riot. Because, first of all, you got guys you got to re-sign. You said a safety. You got 2 of the best safeties in the game, and you got to pay them both, and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. And then you got
Are
J-Mo.
they going to pay them both, though? Can they pay them both? I don't know.
I get it. I don't know. That's why we have you on the show. Same thing. We're having a receiver in. If Golden comes in here, and he visited, Matthew Golden from Texas, if you know he's not going to be there, why is he here? And does that mean Jamison Williams is expendable? Do you think he will be traded on draft night?
I hope not. I like Jamison Williams a lot, and I think he's grown as a player a lot. I would hope they would not do that, but they are going to be in a position where, you're going to have to consider you can't pay both safeties, or that's going to be tough. Yep. You still have to pay Hutchinson. You're going to, you have to pay Jahmyr Gibbs when he's up. There's a lot coming. There's a safety in the draft whose name is Andrew Makuba. I think you could get him at say, pick 102. He would be your Kirby Joseph replacement. He is as instinctive a coverage safety as there is in the draft. He's a little smaller. I want to say he's 5'11" and in the 185 range. But watching him make plays on the ball is crazy. They're going to be in for some tough decisions, and I think as fans, everybody needs to recognize that some of what they're going to be doing going forward, because there's not a lot of roster availability, is potentially to replace players that they may not be able to re-sign. Wow. So, I don't want them to move Jameson Williams, but if they're not intending on re-signing him, then sure, But I hope that's not the case.
Scott, one of the things, and I had a big hissy fit over this, and I admit I got my panties in a bunch. The Lions off season, the free agency. I feel like they're so darn close to a Super Bowl that I would like them to go for it. What does that mean? I know Crosby and Garrett are not available. I don't know what that means. It just, when you see it. Is there a player in this draft? Because I do not believe you can draft yourself to a championship. I just don't think you can do it. But if this is the route the Lions go, is there a player in this draft, not named Abdul Carter probably, because I don't think they get him. Is there a player in this draft that if they get this guy on, opposite Aiden Hutchinson, where you say, this guy is a steal. This guy is a stud. This guy is going to put them over the top. This guy is going to give them an opportunity to solidify that side of the defensive line.
You're going to get me in a lot of trouble.
Does that player exist?
Yeah, that player does exist. His name is Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
From Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
Yeah. But I can already feel the eyes rolling out there. He had 4.5 sacks in his college career. So, right? Yeah. So, right?
No, it's great. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
No, this is perfect. The reaction is exactly what's happening elsewhere.
The numbers don't always tell the story. How many points did Kyrie have in college?
He is 6'5". He played in the mid 280s at Texas A&M. He weighed 267 at his pro or at the combine. He ran a ridiculous number. I want to say it was sub 4.6.
Sub 4.5.
He's got heavy hands. He's very physical. He's got 34.5-inch arms. He's a dominant run defender right now. It's just the way Texas A&M uses their edge players is a lot like what Georgia does, which is they have them line up, head up over the offensive tackle, or even maybe kicked in at 4-eye, which is a little more inside the ball than that. And then they have them step into the B gap. So he's not on the edge of the offensive line just ripping around the corner all the time, simply because that's not what they asked them to do. And then they asked them to bulk up. So Nick Scorton is another player who played edge for A&M. He played at Purdue 2 years ago. Looked like a totally different guy at Purdue. He goes down to A&M. They ask him to bulk up to 280, and he looks kind of stiff and slow. And his A&M film reminds me a lot of Josh Pascal. But back to Shamar Stewart, if we're talking about a streamlined version of this guy who is an athletic freak, I mean like a freak, and you just project the upside, which is kind of what you're asking me to do. He is the one guy after Abdul Carter in this draft that can change the way offenses decide to do things because of his ability to defend the run and then develop as a pass rusher. And I mean develop. He's going to have to develop that. But some of that stuff is already there. He does get pressures. So it's not like it's me playing on the edge of that defensive line, or no offense. I mean, he's a dude. It's just he's got to grow as a player, but he is the one player where you think, yeah, if they draft him, that dude in 2 years could be an absolute rock star.
Talking to Scott Bishop of footballguys.com. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Here we go.
Uh-oh.
Because when Maz asked you the question, who falls to 28, I heard about 4 different positions mentioned. But then when Ryan asked you, who's the guy that if the Lions get him, it was defensive lineman, Shamar Stewart. With that being said, do you think the Lions roster, as currently constructed through the free agency, the draft, and everything it is, do you think it's a set enough roster that it does not matter what they take in the first round, or do you think they got to focus on something?
I think they have to figure out a way to get some help from their first round pick. If you told me that they were going to go into the regular season with what they have out of their defensive end group, I would say I would have preferred if they re-signed Zadarius Smith and drafted an edge player. So I would hope that I would kind of hope they do. They need more pass rush help.
Thank you.
At pick 60, Josiah Stewart would be that'd be a home run kind of a pick from Michigan. I know he ran a slow 40. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
So did Jerry Rice.
Just from like a pressure standpoint, he can do those things. It's just you have a bunch of older players. They need some help there. But I understand that you can't just sit at you can't go into day one saying we're taking an edge player no matter who it is, because that's how you get in trouble. But I do think that their window is now, and if you can find young help opposite Hutchinson, especially in year one where there's a rotation of players where you're not relying upon Marcus Davenport to give you 17 games of top tier production. There's going to be a committee there. I think that makes sense. But you could say the same thing about guard. Do they need a guard? Yeah, I think they do. I think Graham Glasgow would be a nice interior depth piece, but not necessarily a player you'd want to start. So then you're looking at a player like Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, who could play guard at a pretty high level for you. It's just, is that a little rich for all the pieces they already have on their offensive line that they grabbed in round one? It might be, but then again, the strength of this offense is their offensive line. So I'm waffling again, I guess.
Yeah. I asked the question because so go ahead, man.
No, it's okay, man.
I was going to say, the only reason I asked the question is I was one of those guys, hey, look, man, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. Hell, if we get Trey Hendrickson, I'm still a fan of that move.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say, hey, look, the team we had last year before the injuries is a team that should have went to the Super Bowl, had a chance to win the Super Bowl. So eventually I started coming off of it a little bit and saying, all right, but I look at that D-line as currently constructed, and I know that one guy's coming back from injury, two guys coming back from injury, three guys coming back from injury, and fourth guy, he got injured a couple times last year. So that defensive line is what I want them to address.
Indeed. Well said.
How about this? I want to ask you about the quarterbacks in this draft. What teams in this first round are taking quarterbacks, Scott?
The Tennessee Titans, Tom.
That's one.
That's it.
Are the Giants and the Cleveland Browns taking quarterbacks?
I could see one of those two teams trading into the end of round one to grab a quarterback, but the Saints at pick 9 are an interesting quarterback spot.
Yep.
The Jets at pick 7 are. This is gonna, if you have Justin Fields and you're the Jets, Jalen Milroe makes some sense. I know it's early, but Milroe makes some sense there to pair with Justin Fields. You'd be running almost the same offense. The problem with Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart is that and we talked about this earlier, with their footwork and some of the stuff some of the flaws in their game, they don't have arm strength enough to make up for the sometimes sloppiness in their feet where Cam Ward does. Cam Ward's got a cannon. He's going to enter the NFL and have a top 10 arm. So he doesn't really need to have his platform set to rip throws, but the other guys do. So some of these places that we're talking about, like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, those are cold weather, not easy places to drive the ball into the cold and the wind. Are you really taking, Jackson Dart are you really going to, I don't know. Right. So it doesn't, there's not perfect fits there, but in round one, I would think, the Jets, the Saints, I would think you'd be looking at Pittsburgh at pick 21 and then trade ups for the Giants and the Browns to come back up into, the late 20s, possibly to grab a quarterback and get that fifth-year option. Those make sense to me. But then there are other teams. Like, what does Seattle do if a player like Shedeur Sanders is available? Are they intrigued there? They could be. All
right. Last one on the Lions for me. Last one on the Lions for me.
The Rams could be too.
Yeah, you're right. Jackson Dart was supposedly a gold mine for them to sit behind Matthew Stafford. as far as the Lions last year, they reached on Manu. They drafted Mahogany. Mahogany looks like he's going to be okay. Do you think those two guys take a step up this year for the Lions?
Mahogany does for sure. I think the projections are for him to start for them. I think Manu is still a year away. I think there's some discussion around him playing guard, but I don't think that's necessarily a thing so much. I think this is a player who's going to play tackle. He's going to play on the edge of the offensive line if it works. And, he's training with Taylor Decker. We'll see. I think he's a year away from really that conversation happening. But, I think they'll cross-train him and try to play him at guard a little. I'm not sure that his physical profile fits that.
Hey, Scott, thanks for spending all this time with us. I could talk to you for a long. You got a couple of more minutes for us?
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm just going to extend this break. We won't take a commercial break. I'll just extend this 3:30, Pete, just so you know.
You got it, buddy.
I want to ask you, just back to Shedeur Sanders. Give me a best-case scenario and a worst-case scenario for Shedeur on draft night. Best case, worst case.
Best case for his stock is he goes to the Giants at 3.
Yep.
Worst case is he falls and potentially goes to, say, the Browns in the late first round. And I just don't think that's a great fit for what he is as a player. I think we're talking about a player that has some Jared Goff-like stuff, and he's nowhere near as accurate as Goff is, but he's accurate. And he does have really nice ability in his release to manipulate his release, to deliver the ball kind of, in rhythm, in tempo. He can layer throws and that kind of stuff. He's just not a quarterback who's going to rip throws and throw guys open. He needs to see it first and then throw it open. And Braylon, you mentioned earlier with, the windows closing in the NFL and things just happening faster. That's tough. It's a tough combination. So
yeah, it is.
I don't like any of the destinations for Shedeur where it's outside and in the cold and in the wind, because I just don't know that he can drive the ball in those conditions. Now, indoors, if he goes to the Saints, that's a really good situation for him, because you are talking about timing, tempo, indoors, all that stuff. It's just a lot better for him. He's a good player. He's a good prospect, but he's nowhere near what we saw last year.
I wanted to ask you about Ashton Jeanty as well. I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs and what he gave the Detroit Lions, it was kind of like on draft night, it was kind of like what are they doing? And then you get to the games, you get to the season, and you're like, holy crap. Yeah, who cares where they take him? When teams see what happened with the Lions and Gibbs, the impact that Gibbs had on the Lions, does it make it easier, I guess, to pick a guy like Jeanty? And Braylon is throwing out this. I actually think this is a fantastic idea. If you're Cleveland, why not take him at 2, Ashton Jeanty at 2? What he could do for that team with Nick Chubb getting hurt every third game. My goodness. You can play defense. You can run the football.
It definitely help a quarterback
You might be able to do something. Now, maybe not 2, but he's going to be high up there.
Yeah, I think I could see the Bears making a move from 10 to 5 with Jacksonville and taking Jeanty and making life miserable for Lions fans. Think about the pressure he would take off of Caleb Williams. Just, it's kind of nightmarish to think about. But he is – so where Gibbs was electric from a speed and explosion standpoint,